Hey guys, so wanted to highlight this recent interview with Kevin Iole and Jon Jones because it is interesting. Holy shit. This is an interview that I feel as though is going to ruin Jon Jones' legacy somewhat. When you watch it, it is hard to not just feel like he is absolutely ducking Tom Aspinall as much as possible. We'll get started a little bit into this.
Your only career loss on the record was because of a 12-6 elbow against Matt Hamill. So, what impact does it have, and how does it make you feel to know now that that elbow you threw against Matt Hamill would be legal right now?
It just makes me wish that disqualification was overturned.
Of course, that's his answer. Jon Jones never says like, "Oh, I made a mistake," or "I'm sorry about that," or blah blah blah. Like if he had come out and just said right off the bat, "Hey, the rule was the rule. It is what it is. I did something I shouldn't have done. I got disqualified. It's unfortunate. I wish it was different, but now the rules are going to be different, and we can implement those in a new way. And I'm looking forward to trying to implement them into my game." But that's not what he does. He goes, "I really wish they could just overturn that loss." Of course you do, John. Can we point out the fact that you probably deserve to have losses just for failing drug test? If I was in a drag race with somebody, right? And right before we're about to take off, right? We're coming off the line. I have a handgun and then I shoot it at one of your tires and I flatten one of your tires and then I peel out, right? I didn't win. I cheated. So you cheated, and yet what? It doesn't count as a loss for you? It should. I don't understand this. How about the eye pokes? I think he, if I recall correctly, has 6 separate title defenses where he has eye poked people in fights. Eye pokes in MMA are catastrophic. This has happened numerous times with him. He's poked people through his whole career. I've seen compilation videos where people put together all of his eye pokes. It is obscene that he has never lost a fucking point for eye pokes. He does illegal techniques purposely.
A lot of people are questioning why is Stipe getting this fight because he hasn't won a fight in so long and he hasn't fought in quite a long time. Is it because he is widely considered to be the greatest heavyweight of all time? Is that sort of in your thinking?
It's because Stipe Miocic is one of the greatest heavyweights of all time. He's probably top 4. Most people would put him in the top 4. Some people might say he's the greatest. Again, debatable. I think most people, it's going to go some order of these group, not necessarily in order. You got Cain Velasquez, you got Verdum, you got Fedor, you got Stipe. The reason Jon Jones wants to face Stipe is because Stipe is a name. He is one of the GOATs at heavyweight, and he is 42 years old, and his last fight was 4 years ago against Francis Ngannou, who knocked him unconscious viciously, and he knows that he has a very high chance of winning against him. That's why he wants to face him. This is a pure money fight, and he is trying to play it off as it is a legacy fight when it is not.
When you say, hey, Stipe is the guy I want to fight, that the reputation he has within the division that you now compete in?
I feel that it's unfortunate that we live in a world where one bad performance discredits a person so much. Stipe has beat everyone.
I mean, I would agree. I do actually feel like that is an issue, but it's not as big of an issue in MMA as it is in boxing. Boxing's horrendous about this. Boxing is the classic. If you're not 20-0, it doesn't matter. This is why boxers' records are so incredibly padded. MMA is a little better about it, but even MMA is starting to get that route a little bit, where it's like, this guy has a couple losses.
Many champions he's defeated, and I feel like I'm wise enough to know that one bad night doesn't make a man or break a man. And Stipe is every bit of worthy as my opponent. It's not easy winning championships back to back.
Fair. That is very true. I know it's, I would say Stipe is not a worthy opponent anymore, but it is not easy winning championships back to back. Stipe is an underappreciated guy. He is one of the heavyweight GOATs. I don't think he was appreciated very well in his time. There are some people who are huge fans of his. I was a big fan of his. I was always talking about how good I thought he was and how incredible it was. The big problem with Stipe is Stipe doesn't, he's not a loudmouth. He's not a talker. He's not a big social media guy, all this stuff. Yeah, he goes out there, has exciting fights, knock guys out, but that, unfortunately, in this day and age is not the only thing. Everybody's trying to be Conor McGregor.
Especially in the heavyweight division. And what he's done is truly special. And I just want to give the man his opportunity. I know fighting me for a lot of athletes is a really big deal. And if anyone deserves to be in there with me, it's Stipe Miocic.
I would be fine with this fight if Jon Jones was not the heavyweight champion and he was holding up the heavyweight belt. Stipe Miocic is not a deserving fighter because he lost the heavyweight belt 4 years ago by knockout, and that was his last fight. You have Tom Aspinall, who's a defending interim champ, who's 30 years old, who's hungry, who's knocking guys out, who has, from what I've heard, I don't know if this is exactly accurate, has 42 total minutes of fight time in all of his professional MMA career. That's a crazy small amount of time because he has been putting guys out left and right that fast. That is a deserving person to fight, not a 42-year-old man who clearly isn't in his prime anymore. If you wanted to just say this is a money fight because Stipe is a big name, people know who he is, it'll be me, the GOAT against the heavyweight GOAT. That's why we're doing this. We're doing this for the money. This is going to be, pay-per-view points, all that stuff. People are going to tune in. Tom Aspinall's not a big enough name for me. I'm not going to face him because he's not going to sell pay-per-views. I have 1 to 2 fights left, and I'm looking for these big pay-per-views, right? Just go the Money Mayweather route. Just say it's about money. I mean, Mayweather used to say, legacy doesn't feed my kids. I mean, it's true. Most people will get behind you if you just go the money route. Just say, no, man, like Tom Aspinall is not putting asses in seats. Stipe will put asses in seats. Stipe will sell pay-per-views. Tom Aspinall won't. You say that, people are on your side. But you're not saying that. You're saying, oh, this is a legacy fight and blah, blah, blah. No one gives a fuck about that, man. You are a defending heavyweight champion. Then defend it against somebody who deserves to be fighting for the belt.
I have been critical of the fight, not because Stipe got beaten by Francis, but because he hasn't fought for so long, right?
Those are both good reasons. He got beat by Francis and he hasn't fought in 4 years.
That is the big issue here, right? Tom Aspinall's been fighting and been active, and Stipe has not. That's the only issue, I think.
I mean, this is the crazy thing, because later on they talk about the pound for pound thing, and Dana White's insane take on the pound for pound. It's like, bro, activity has to matter somewhat, right?
Just like everybody agrees that you're the greatest fighter of all time, even though you haven't fought, in 2 years or a year and a half, people also think he's the greatest heavyweight. He just hasn't been active. And I think that's the argument people make.
I hear you. But
he's I hear you. Now shut the fuck up.
What it shows me is our boss's loyalty.
Fuck out of here with that.
To his athletes. I mean, Stipe.
Yeah, Dana White's renowned for his loyalty to his athletes. Let me tell you, he's known for treating his athletes amazingly.
Miocic versus Francis back in the day. How would this 240-pound athlete go up a guy like Francis, this larger than life character? And they gave us a great, a little saga or whatnot, you want to call it. Dana White doesn't forget that,
Dana White doesn't give a fuck about that.
I believe guys like Stipe and we helped take the UFC to a new level. And just because.
I mean, I guess. I think that's true about Jon Jones. I do think Stipe is a phenomenal heavyweight, and he's obviously one of the GOATs. I don't think that Stipe brought in a lot of people. Jon Jones brought in a lot of people. So unfortunately, Stipe is just not the star that Jon is, and he didn't put the UFC on the map the same way that Jon did.
We've been off for a while. Doesn't mean we're not great athletes and we don't have strong fan bases. We don't have MMA historians who, I shouldn't call it historians, but longtime MMA fans who always question what would happen with Jon and Stipe.
Those are the kind of fights you make when somebody isn't currently the champion. Those are those fights. Everybody wanted to see, Roy Jones Jr. versus Mike Tyson, right? Like, that's something you make later in the career. Maybe not as late as they did. I mean, they were in their 50s, a little late then. But you make these fights later in these guys' career when they're not the champion. You are the current heavyweight champion. You should be facing actual title contenders.
37 years old, and I am not a person to be counted out. And at 42, I don't believe Stipe is the person to become.
I think this just goes back to highlighting the fact that Jon Jones always has advantages in his fights that are pretty obvious. He has a 5-year age advantage here.
On it out. Styles makes matchups, and for the real long-term MMA fans who grew up watching both Stipe and I compete, I think this fight is always going to be intriguing to them.
Again, I think it's intriguing in a different circumstance.
He obviously has had an unbelievable, beat for Brucio Verdum. He's beaten DC twice. He beat Francis Ngannou. So nobody can argue.
He's had some crazy wins, some seriously impressive wins. I'm a big Stipe fan. He never got interest from the general public that he deserved, in my opinion. Again, he's not a big talker. All right, so the next portion of this is going to be, why are you not fighting Tom Aspinall? And this is the part that I think just highlights the fact that he's clearly scared to fight Tom Aspinall and has no interest in fighting him. And he absolutely says that, and you can watch the response he has right off the bat here.
You're fighting Stipe Miocic, and I know you're focused on that fight. If you defeat him, as you're a 6-1 favorite to win the fight.
You're a 6-1 favorite to win the fight. Again, right? We're going back to Stipe's, this dangerous guy. He's this guy who could come and take my belt, all this stuff. It's the fight this fans want to see. You're a 6-1 favorite, dude. You're taking this fight because it is, one, it's a fight on paper that you are very, very likely going to win. And two, it's a fight that's going to make you a lot of money. That's it. I don't think anybody's looking at this fight like it's some crazy legacy fight. It's insane. Stipe is past his sell date. And I love Stipe, but he's 42, hasn't fought in 4 years, was knocked out by Francis Ngannou in his last fight. Come on, man.
If you defeat him, will you defend your belt against Aspinall, who has the interim title?
More than
Look at that face. Look at that face. Why the fuck are you talking about Tom Aspinall right now? That's what that face says.
likely not. More than likely not. I feel like Tom Aspinall.
More than likely not. Yeah. He's not ever going to face Tom Aspinall. So I think the MMA world just kind of has to put this one to bed and accept it that Jon Jones is not going to face Tom Aspinall. But this is damaging his legacy, and there's no way around it. There's no way around it. Tom Aspinall is a young guy. He's younger in heavyweight world. He's 30. He's the same height, I think, or maybe an inch shorter than Jones. Doesn't have the same reach, but he's heavier, and he's been putting people to sleep. Jones doesn't have great boxing, and Tom Aspinall is putting people to sleep in the first 2 minutes. Heavyweights, big heavyweights, he's putting them to sleep. Yeah, Jones is not interested in fighting Tom Aspinall. And I'll be really honest with you, I don't think Jones beats a lot of heavyweights currently. There's a lot of heavyweights that I think could possibly give Jones a problem at heavyweight. He is looking for a money fight. This has nothing to do about legacy at all right now.
I don't want to say nobody, but
call Tom Aspinall nobody.
He just hasn't proven anything. He hasn't done anything, and
look at Kevin's face here. That's a face of oh, okay. That's the face of oh, you're full of shit. Got it. Tom Aspinall is the interim defending champ currently. It's insane. It's crazy. That's insane to say.
And I understand that. I mean, he won his belt against Sergey. Sergey just got slaughtered by someone else. So
that was Volkov, who Tom Aspinall also beat in 3 minutes, I believe.
It's just I'm not here to gamble someone else making a name off of me. I'm here to.
That's a crazy take, man. That's a crazy take. I mean, you're basically saying he is. There's too much of likelihood that I'm going to lose that fight, so I don't want to fight him. That's what you just said. I like the fact that I'm a 6-1 favorite over a 42-year-old man who got knocked out in his last fight 4 years ago. That's what you're saying.
To compete against the guys where when we look back, 10 years from now, it'd be like Jon Jones fought this guy and that guy and this legend and this champion and this champion.
So I just brought up 2 seconds ago, Roy Jones Jr. and Mike Tyson facing each other, and nobody looks back at that fight well at all. And in 10 to 15 years, nobody's going to look back at that fight well. And you can look at Kevin's face here, and I feel like he's thinking the same thing. Nobody's looking at this fight in a good way, positively, right? And if Jon Jones goes out there and absolutely destroys Stipe, which is what basically most people think, unfortunately, I hope Stipe fucking chins his ass. Unfortunately, there's a good chance Jon Jones goes out there and does what he did to Cyril Gane to Stipe, right? And if that happens, in 10 to 15 years, nobody is going to look back at that fight and just be like, oh, yeah, Jon Jones, he beat Stipe. Yeah, when he was like 1 foot in the nursing home.
If there were to be a fight of a guy that's still on our UFC roster that would be not only financially worth it, but
at least he said financially worth it. I don't mind the financial point of view. Here's the thing. Like some of these guys that talk on this stuff, like do these podcasts, MMA Guru is like this, honestly. He has this very fan-centric point of view, which is fine. You can have that point of view. But he has the point of view, whatever's good for the fan is what matters most. I don't have that in point of view entirely. I think to some extent that's true. But I also think what's good for the fighter is important as well. I was a pro fighter at one point. I trained fighters, so forth. I understand that this career is really rough. And you could choose a different career. You don't have to fight. Fighting is probably the worst career you could choose, and it's stupid. But that being said, you also need to be smart about how you do things. And one of the things you need to do is you need to make sure that you make as much as money as possible with as little fights as possible and with little hard fights as possible. So for the most part, you're going to be facing, you're really, really trying to choose your opposition well, especially as you go up into the pros. Sometimes you don't have that choice. It's just what it is. But in this situation, Jon Jones is basically just saying, yeah, this is a good money fight that I have a high probability of winning. And there's nothing wrong with that. Most people do not fault Mayweather for going the money Mayweather route. He's like, yeah, I'm looking to make money. He started making a lot of money. Mayweather did when he faced Oscar De La Hoya. After that, he became the big name, beating Oscar De La Hoya. I mean, look at Canelo right now. He's not facing the hardest guys. He's facing good money fights. I don't really mind that. Yes, Canelo should probably be facing harder opposition. Yes, Mayweather, towards the end of his career, should have been facing harder opposition. Obviously, you have a Logan Paul fight on there, for the fuck's sake. But if you just kind of say stuff like, yeah, it makes me a lot of money and I don't have to like kill myself to do it, most people will understand it. Most people will be like, it's fine. But that's not what you're doing here. You're trying to make this sound like it's like a legitimate, I'm fighting this really scary guy to defend my belt against. But that's not what you're doing. Not at all.
Would be not only financially worth it, but legacy worth it. It would be Alex Pereira.
What a fucking shock.
Alex Pereira and I, we both 37.
Light heavyweight champ.
Yeah, we're both 37 years old. Right now, I weigh about
Alex Pereira. So again, Alex Pereira sells a lot of pay-per-views. That's another reason he's going after him. This is another example of him wanting to be in a position of just like, I want somebody that I'm very likely going to win against. Why does he like Alex Pereira? Why do you think Jon Jones wants to face Alex Pereira? Jon Jones wants to face Alex Pereira because Alex Pereira is not an actual heavyweight. And he's not that good at jiu-jitsu, and he's not that good at wrestling. Tom Aspinall is a big guy. He's built like a linebacker. He's been doing jiu-jitsu since he was a kid. He has a lot of wrestling. He has really good boxing. Those things all match up really bad for Jon Jones. And he's fast in and out and explodes well. Jon Jones isn't just going to like pancake Tom Aspinall on his back and fuck him up. Alex Pereira was taken down by Israel Adesanya in their fights. Alex Pereira was taken down by Jan Blachowicz in their fight. I think Jan might have won that fight, to be honest with you. My point is, Alex Pereira has not really been shown to have the best takedown defense or the best jiu-jitsu. And Alex Pereira is also older. He's 37, just like Jon Jones. Jon Jones is not looking to face a young 30-year-old guy who's super explosive and has a decent ground game and probably pretty goddamn hard to take down. This is why he wouldn't face Ngannou. Once Ngannou showed that he couldn't easily be taken down and had like tremendously vicious boxing, and if he touched guys, he knocked them out, Jon Jones was like, yeah, fuck that.
About 235. I'm an incredibly light heavyweight. I think Pereira walks around at 240.
I like how he tries to make Pereira sound like he's the bigger guy here. Get fucked.
And I think that fight would go much farther on my legacy than...
That's not a legacy fight, dude. Again, that's a money fight. That's a money fight.
A young man who's cool today and maybe gone tomorrow. I remember a time when the whole...
Kevin Isley kind of gave like the look that I think most of the audience when they listen to this shit thought. That is the look of like, I don't know about that. That's a little extreme. Again, interim defending champ currently.
World thought Johnny Walker was going to be the guy to beat me. And no disrespect for the Johnny Walker, but I mean, we all have seen the way his career's played out. Johnny
Walker and Tom Aspinall are not even close to comparable, and that's insane. And he's just saying that because he's just trying to diminish what Tom Aspinall has done. Tom Aspinall has knocked out basically everybody in the UFC who's a who's who will actually face him. Tom Aspinall has tried to face Cyril Gane. Cyril Gane refuses to face him. This is a crazy take. Johnny Walker, come on, man.
Been here too long to get all excited about someone who's hot today. I'm here for legacy. I've been gambling for way too long to just take random fights.
Wild take. That whole segment's wild as fuck. It looks so, it's like a huge black eye. It's a huge black eye. I just think it makes him look like, bro, you're clearly scared. And you could literally just come out and say, Tom Aspinall is a super dangerous fighter. I'm in the business of making sure that I make as much money as possible before I retire. I want to fight these legends. Tom Aspinall is not a legend. He's an up and comer. He doesn't have the name that I'm looking for right now. I'm looking for pay-per-views. I'm looking for buys. All due respect to him. He's going to be the future champ when I'm done, but I'm not interested in facing him. He's not putting asses in seats. You could easily just go that route, but instead you're just like, he's not that good. He hasn't faced anybody, not done anything. Wild takes. It just makes you sound very scared.
You've had a number of great accomplishments in your career, right? It's been unbelievable. And you're, I would say, technically undefeated, right? Everybody would agree with that.
You're not fucking technically undefeated. I hate that take. If he's technically undefeated because of the Matt Hamill fight, then technically he lost the fight to fucking Reyes.
The longevity is what gets me, right? I think that's your greatest, not that streak after you won the title with Shogun going through Rampage and all those guys, but I think the longevity. What do you attribute that longevity to, given the fact that you haven't always been the cleanest liver, right? And you haven't taken care of your body the way other people have, and yet for, you said 16 years, right? Look at how you've been on top for so long. What do you attribute that to?
Drugs.
Beer and donuts, man, honestly. No, it's easy, Kev.
That's me.
That's funny. I thought we were late when I say that. It's easy.
God. Ugh. It's pretty cringy, pretty fake.
Everyone's not going to want to hear this answer, but I feel like the spirit that lives inside of me, and the faithfulness that lives inside of me keeps me young.
Do you think this guy's faithful to his wife at all? Even a little bit? I mean, okay. I mean, MMA Guru has a take that Jon Jones is a closet homosexual, which I don't care which way you swing. I don't give a shit. Like, if you like dudes, you like dudes. If you like girls, you like girls. More power to you. Do your thing. If you like both, you like both. I don't care, right? But I don't think for 2 seconds this guy is faithful to his wife, whether that be him cheating on his wife with men or women. Or maybe both.
Age is just a number, and
I mean, age is just a number to some extent when you're able to take copious amounts of drugs and get away with it, because the UFC will bend over backwards to make sure that you're able to fight.
And I feel like, the higher power that gives me strength, he tells me when I'm hurt. He tells me
the higher power, dude. I'm not a religious person, and I really actually don't care if you are a religious person. More power to you. I think there's some amazing people out there that are very religious. Some of the best people I've ever met in my life are religious. But what I have also found is that almost always some of the scummiest people I've ever met in my life are the people who preach this kind of stuff. People who are really religious don't usually talk like this. It's always the person who's like just the worst person you've met, right? Who's like, well, only God can judge, only God can judge me. Bro, you say that because you've hit and run a pregnant woman before. You've hit your wife. You've cheated multiple times in fights, both in the fights while you eye gouge people and out of the fights while you take drugs. You have multiple DUIs. You're not a good guy. This whole choir boy act to me is it's just insane. I don't know why he doesn't lean into the heel. Just be yeah, fuck everybody. I don't give a fuck what people think. A lot of people would probably like him if he was more like that, honestly.
And as of right now, he hasn't said any of those things to me. I believe I have a lot more fight inside of me. And that's what keeps me young. For the longest time, I didn't even have a recovery protocol. Thank God I met Gary Brecker recently, who's been teaching me a lot of things about...
Oh, you're weak.
The first time I heard this, I didn't know if he meant recovery as in sports recovery, or if he meant recovery as in drugs and alcohol. Because I'm yeah, I'm pretty aware that you don't have a drug and alcohol recovery protocol.
The most real answer I can think to give you is the spiritual that's inside of me. It gives me
and drugs, lots of drugs.
Great strength.
I know that you've heard Dana for the last 6 or 8 months. Jon Jones is the greatest pound for pound fighter in the world.
I mean, Dana White has glazed Jon Jones more than I've seen him ever do any other fighter in the history of the UFC. It's kind of astonishing. It's like next level insanity. And that's because he knows that Jon Jones is a pay-per-view seller. And he knows that Stipe, being a former champion, and then coupling those two together, the UFC heavyweight GOAT versus Jon Jones, the GOAT, we're going to see who wins. It's going to draw a lot of people in because a lot of casuals are stupid.
You say to Dana, where are you going for dinner tonight? Well, I don't know, but Jon Jones is the greatest pound for pound fighter in the world.
And that's why Dana White just keeps saying that. He's going to say that nonstop. And it's because he knows it'll help sell pay-per-views. Dana White would say, man, that guy's Satan. Good dude. Pound for pound best. I don't think it matters how bad of a person that person is. As long as they're going to sell some pay-per-views, Dana White will promote him.
When my only argument was Jon hasn't fought in 18 months, and so he can't be pound for pound if you're not active. I just want to give you, why does being number one pound for pound mean so much to you? Because I saw you when Dana has said that, you have tweeted and gone on social media and said that. Why does that mean so much to you?
Activity matters in pound for pound rankings, and the idea that it doesn't is insane. The pound for pound rankings are literally the what have you done for me lately rankings. That is the way you need to look at it. What have you done in the last 3 to 5 years? That bare minimum. Like, it really is probably closer to a year to 2 years because they're restructured like that constantly. Alex Pereira, whole career is in the UFC has basically been within the time period of Jon Jones' last fight to now, if I recall. It's like 2 or 3 years, something like that at most. I mean, Taporia, look what he's done. Islam, look what he's done. Those guys are clearly more on the pound for pound than Jon Jones. Jon Jones' last fight 2 years ago against a guy who wasn't the champion. It was a vacant belt. A guy who lost to Francis. The fights that he had before that were almost 4 years ago at 205. His last 205 fight was against Reyes, which he clearly lost. And then his fight before that was against Santos, which was a split decision win, which he probably lost. And then the next one after that was a decision with Anthony Smith. 5 rounds. You went through a decision with Anthony Smith. Like, you're not the pound for pound, my dude. You're just not.
It's just a huge honor to even be considered at 37 years old, one of the most well-rounded winners in our sport still. It's a huge honor, and I'm just very grateful that my boss, a man who sat front row for every fight, for all of our fights, for him to say, hey, listen, guys,
Bro, I can't take it. Dana White and Jon Jones have talked so much shit on each other throughout the years, and then from the most act like they just love each other right now is just so disingenuous. They're both scumbags, and they both will just say anything to get money.
I know what I'm watching. I know what I'm looking at. And in my opinion, if Jon was the same size as a lot of these other guys, Jon would be in the mix.
Bro, could you imagine Demetrius Johnson, a 6'5" Demetrius Johnson with the wingspan of Jon Jones? Bro, there is nobody on earth beating that guy.
I think we have a lot of new fans, a lot of younger fans who, our sport can be very, what have you done for me lately?
That's true. I agree with that. The what have you done for me lately thing is very sad, unfortunately, at times. But the pound for pound rankings are literally that.
I think Dana is doing a great job of saying, hey, let's wait a minute. Let's remember what this guy's done.
Right.
And I'm grateful. I'm grateful that he's not allowing the naysayers or some of the fans to just push me to the side because.
Bro, you are for sure one of the top 3 GOATs, for sure, in my opinion. That may change over time, just how this all works, right? But you're still a GOAT. You still are. But you're not the pound for pound, man. Pound for pound is the guys right now who are doing shit. You haven't been doing shit.
I have done a tremendous amount of work for this company, and I've done it at a very young age, and I did it at very middle age, and I'm doing it at a late age now, and I'm just grateful to be recognized.
I'll just say this. MMA is very lucky because if you talk to most people's top 3 GOATs of all time are, in no particular order, Jon Jones, GSP, Mighty Mouse. We're very lucky to have GSP and Mighty Mouse because GSP and Mighty Mouse are both tremendous fighters, but also good human beings. I've met Mighty Mouse in person. He's a really, really cool, nice dude. He's always treated everybody really, really well. Of anybody that I could think to for kids to model themselves after, I can't think of somebody better. GSP falls in that way as well. Always been very respectful. He's not a shit talker. He never had any issues outside of the cage or in the cage, really. I mean, and that's the same for Mighty Mouse as well. And it's just really a shame that somebody like Jon Jones also happens to be so talented, but such a scumbag. And you can just look at this, man. Like, he is just a disingenuous person. He lies and lies and lies, man. I don't believe anything he says. I mean, he's in a constant state of pretending to be somebody. And it's just, man, it's like watching a lizard person. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, everything's like this mask of like, oh, I'm pretending to be this and I'm pretending to be that. And, oh, you know, I'm just really happy I have this higher power in Jesus and so forth. And it's like, man, like, come on, dude. Like, nobody believes this. And it's just wild to me. If he just leaned into being like a piece of shit, honestly, he might get more people on his side, just because people would be like, oh, at least you're actually like, you seem like a genuine person. I don't know, man. It's just a shame. If Jon Jones was not as talented as he is, and not as, if he was not the fighter he is and able to do what he's doing, he would be in prison for sure. He has a ton of fame and a ton of money, and that's the reason he's not in jail. It's just that simple. I mean, he's talking about faith and like his belief and all this stuff. Bro, you hit your wife this year. Come on, man. I'm actually kind of happy this came out. And the reason I'm happy this came out is because I think it helps take some of the shine off of Jon Jones being the obvious GOAT. I always hear people say, well, he's the obvious GOAT. It's not the obvious GOAT. And if you need proof of that, there's a lot of other channels out there that have done videos, plenty of them, that talk about Jon Jones is not the GOAT. And they have really, really, really strong arguments. Like I said, I think Jon Jones is top 3. And he could be the GOAT, but I don't think he's the obvious GOAT. And I think interviews like this really kind of highlight that. He's scared to fight Tom Aspinall. It's obvious, and he should have absolutely spun this a completely different way, and he didn't. And I think what all this did was just highlight what's actually going on in his head. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it.